Hello, everyone. I'm Emily Basham from the Connecticut Green Bank. Welcome to the webinar and happy Earth Day. This is the 5th webinar in the Green Bank's 2021 webinar series, promoting the renewable energy of community. For today's webinar, we want to highlight the refreshed focus on climate at the federal level and highlight how Connecticut is accelerating climate and environmental action at the local level. We have a wonderful lineup of speakers to help us celebrate the 51st Earth Day. White House Climate Advisor Gina McCarthy isn't live with us today, but we're elated to share a video of her opening remarks. Then we'll hear from 3 municipal officials: City of Hartford Mayor Luke Bronin, Coventry Town Manager John Elsessor, and Town of Branford First Selectman Jamie Cosgrove, about their long-standing and relentless sustainability efforts that make them state leaders on climate action. We'll hear about their green projects and initiatives, all which contribute to the sustainability and vibrance of their community, while leading Connecticut toward our carbon-free by 2040 state climate goal. Connecticut is a national leader in climate action. And when you take a closer look, you see towns and cities across the state, like Hartford, Coventry, and Branford, that are doing the heavy lifting, led by mayors who get it and driven by task forces and commissions who are really passionate about it. I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the network of wonderful partners, agencies, and stakeholders across the state that stand up innovative programs and resources to keep our municipalities pushing the envelope, particularly Sustainable CT. Their voluntary certification program for Connecticut's towns and cities provides more than just a menu of action, but also grants, helping hands, and a community of like-minded towns working together to save our towns and our planet. So with that, let's jump in. We are thrilled to have today's opening remarks from Gina McCarthy. At her core, Gina is a top expert in environmental health and air quality, whose leadership, passion, and commitment to public service have materialized in so many critical roles at the local, state, and federal level. This past year, Gina was the president and CEO of NRDC, the National Resources Defense Council, until she was nominated by President Biden to her current role as the administration's first White House National Climate Advisor, where she advises the president on domestic climate change policy. Previously, she served as the 13th administrator of the EPA from 2013 to 2017, as the face of President Obama's Global Warming and Climate Change Initiative, marking a paradigm shift in our national environmental policy by expressly linking the environment with public health. Gina's presidential nominations signaled nationally that our leadership is serious about addressing climate change. For those of us cheering her on from the States, we could breathe a little easier knowing someone as experienced, passionate, and capable as Gina is back to help drive the ship. For many of us on today's webinar, she's our local New England champion, holding top levels of civil service. She's advised 5 Massachusetts governors in several top roles. She was a professor at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, and truly a hometown hero. She served as commissioner of Connecticut's Department of Environmental Protection, where she implemented the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative for the state. And she's got a special place in our hearts at the Connecticut Green Bank, having served on our board of directors, where we got to marvel at her thought leadership and effortless ability to inspire and push us in new directions. We're thrilled she's leading the charge in Washington, and fortunate she was able to participate in today's Earth Day discussion to give us a glimpse of what's to come out of this administration. So without further ado, let's hear from Gina.
Thanks, Emily, for that wonderful introduction and for all the work at the Connecticut Green Bank. And welcome, everyone, to this Earth Day conversation. I'm so excited to hear about all the cities and towns in Connecticut who are leading the charge in accelerating climate and environmental action. You know, next week, President Biden and his special climate envoy, Secretary John Kerry, are hosting a leaders summit on climate change. And it's a gathering of world leaders so they can talk about President Biden's commitment to climate action, as well as the work we have to do across all countries over the next decade to get us on track to tackle our climate crisis. It's going to be an exciting 2 days that feature the president's cabinet, state and city leaders, philanthropists, advocates, business leaders, and others who will make sure the international community knows that the U.S. is all in. And to jumpstart worldwide efforts on the road to Glasgow in November, where we'll once again meet as a world to look at the science, to strengthen our country commitments, and to get us on a collective trajectory to a healthy, safe, more equitable, and sustainable future. Let's not forget that for the past 4 years, state and local governments across the United States have been stepping up when the federal government fell down in their efforts to combat climate change. And I wake up every morning thanking them for their spunk, their fearlessness, their energy, and their ingenuity. And now that the federal government's back, working for the American people again, states and cities will have the leadership and the support they should have expected from the federal government all along. We saw it when President Biden issued his first 2 executive orders that made it clear that climate change is no longer going to be denied, but instead would be recognized as a crisis we can and we must win. And we saw it when President Biden launched his American Jobs Plan, which is all about investing in America again. It's about modernizing America's infrastructure, investing in clean energy and safe drinking water, in roads, bridges, transit, broadband, ports, airports, railroads, EV charging stations, battery manufacturing, a resilient grid, renewable energy like solar and offshore wind, modernizing millions of homes and buildings with renewable and efficient energy. And that's just the highlights on page 1 of the 26-page fact sheet. All right, so a slight exaggeration, but you get the point. It's a plan that's big and bold, so it can meet the moment head on, and one that will meet President Biden's commitment to achieve net zero carbon emissions in 2050 and clean electricity as early as 2035. And it's a plan that ensures at least 40% of the investments are going to the communities that have been systemically disinvested in, the Black, brown, tribal, and low-income communities that have been left behind, Lord knows, for far too long. It's a plan we should all be able to support with pride. It's what our country will be able to accomplish together. A plan that gives everyone a fair shot at millions of good-paying union jobs and U.S. innovations that can spark our world to act together. And the president's infrastructure team is filled with energy and excitement and expertise. They're advocating for the plan across the country and on the Hill. Secretary Granholm from the Department of Energy, Secretary Mayor Pete Buttigieg from Transportation, Secretary Raimondo at Commerce, and Secretary Walsh at Labor are all part of our National Climate Task Force, and they're helping to shape and to deliver our climate actions by deploying the climate solutions we have today and investing in the innovations we need to grab our future. And just make sure to give Connecticut Green Bank, all of you there, Connecticut Green Bank, give them the kudos that they deserve. Brian Garcia and his team, they have been early adopters of smart financing strategies. And let me say that President Biden included a clean energy and sustainability accelerator which will help advance the Green Bank model that was pioneered in Connecticut and Michigan, that's taking hold in local and state governments across the country. Why? Because it can help us fund efforts in those communities that have been left behind. Smart private sector, public sector investments that will get everyone working together and lift everyone up. So let me end by acknowledging the wealth of leadership in Connecticut, because you should be very proud of the way you get to stand tall this Earth Day. Governor Lamont, your leadership in addressing COVID-19 using science as your guide has been instrumental. In your willingness to confront climate change, including policies you're advocating in the current legislative session. They should make this great state proud. My favorite is the expansion of the Green Bank scope beyond clean energy to also include environmental infrastructure. It's so exciting to see the Connecticut Green Bank continuing to evolve and lead. Again, bravo, Brian, and to your team. And Commissioner Dykes, Chair Gillette, Commissioners Giletti and Lehman and Secretary McCaw, you are amazing. Talk about the A-team. And let me give special thanks to Treasurer Wood and his team for supporting the Green Bank in its inaugural Green Liberty Bond in honor of the 50th anniversary of Earth Day last year and the issuance occurring today on Earth Day for the second year. And lastly, the Connecticut Legislature, in particular, the Energy and Technology Committee and the Environment Committee, I really applaud you, because you always work hard to get these public policies across the finish line to passage so we can start the summer with renewed hope and excitement. So on this Earth Day, let's make the start of a new Earth Day an exciting one. One where we don't just get past this pandemic, we get past the partisanship that's divided us. We work together for our families, our communities, and our country to invest in a clean energy future that builds millions of good union jobs, focuses benefits on environmental justice communities, and confronts climate change at the scale and the scope that science demands. In short, let's make this the best Earth Day ever. Thanks, everybody.
Wow, really powerful words from Gina. We're really thankful that she was able to send those remarks on to us. And it's really exciting to hear that President Biden's American Jobs Plan is a bold plan to meet the moment that we're facing. And it's encouraging to hear the infrastructure team that the administration has put together to meet the president's commitment to net zero carbon emissions by 2050 and clean electricity by 2035. I didn't know that, so it's an amazing, bold goal. And it's really refreshing to hear her say, look at the science and climate crisis, those sorts of words and embracing. So as Gina acknowledged, when we have ebbs and flows and federal action on climate, our states and local leaders have always stepped up to lead the charge. For decades, Connecticut towns and cities have set bold clean energy goals, created task forces and commissions, hired energy managers to their staff, drawn up holistic sustainability plans, and then rolled up their sleeves to do the work, to install clean energy projects on town halls and schools, updated codes and regulations to make it easier for residents to adopt clean energy, preserved open lands and parks, transitioned cities' fleets to cleaner vehicles, started composting and recycling programs. Hartford, Coventry, and Branford have done all of this. Those of us who work in clean energy like me know these three are likely to say yes to any program or initiative you ask them to sign on to That is, if they haven't already started it themselves. So before I introduce our first speaker, we will have time for a Q&A at the end. So I want to invite everybody, encourage you to submit your questions for our panelists as they come to you using the chat feature of the webinar platform. And it looks like we got all our panelists back on screen and sound. So we'll kick it off with our speakers, with Mayor Luke Bronin, Mayor of our capital city of Hartford. Mayor Bronin is a husband, father, veteran, attorney, and committed to building a stronger and greener Hartford. Since taking office in 2016, Mayor Bronin led the city through the biggest financial crisis in the city's history, putting Hartford back on track to fiscal stability. In addition to promoting economic development, his administration has worked to position Hartford as a center of innovation and establish Hartford as a leader in environmental stewardship. Mayor Bronin created the city's first Office of Sustainability, which quickly gained a reputation for being early adopters in all areas of sustainability, from energy to transportation to equity. Prior to becoming mayor, Mayor Bronin served in senior positions in both federal and state government as chief counsel for Governor Malloy's office and deputy assistant secretary for terrorist financing and financial crimes at the U.S. Department of the Treasury for the Obama administration. Mayor Bronin has also served as an officer in the Navy. Thank you for your service, Mayor, and for joining us to talk about Hartford's clean energy work. I understand you won't be able to stay until the end, so we'll have Shubhita Kambli and Grace Yee from your office join us for the Q&A portion. So Mayor, over to you.
Great, thank you so much, Emily, and thank you to the Connecticut Green Bank and Brian Garcia and the entire team there. The Green Bank has really been the national model, and we're so fortunate to have both an incredible institution and an incredible team at the Connecticut Green Bank. And as the city of Hartford, we're enormously proud that you now call Hartford the home of your new offices. So we're thrilled that you're not just daily partners, but you also call Hartford home. What an exciting thing to be part of a meeting where you get to hear about a presidential administration that is all in on environmental stewardship. And it's really exciting to hear about the new initiatives that the Biden administration is announcing today. For the last 4 years, prior to this past January 20th, without being too political, I think it's safe to say that the only real progress and momentum that was happening on environmental stewardship was happening at the state and local level. And there's been a lot that has gone on here, but it's thrilling to have a full partner in the federal government once again. At the local level here in Hartford, we've tried to do a lot. You mentioned, Emily, that we created the Office of Sustainability, which Shubhita and Grace are a part of. And that office was created as a recommendation from a Climate Stewardship Council that we convened that put together a set of recommendations for us to pursue in 6 different areas. And we've gone after those. We have a long, long way to go, but we've really made some good progress on environmental efficiency initiatives, for example, which certainly save energy and also save money, by pushing forward projects like the solar array on the landfill. Our hope is that we'll be able to significantly expand that solar array. We're pushing hard for an increase in the virtual net metering caps at the state level, which will allow us to accelerate that work and have a much, much bigger impact. But we're trying to lay that groundwork. And on the mobility front, today we are launching our new electric scooter partnership in the city of Hartford. So when I get off of this call, I'm going to go and try my hand riding one of these new scooters that you'll be able to take all around the city, a convenient but also greener way to get around. We also tried to push the envelope in some policy areas that people don't necessarily think of as being about climate stewardship, but really are things like eliminating parking minimums in the city of Hartford. So if somebody's coming in and building a new development, we no longer tell them, in order to build that development, you have to have a certain number of parking spaces. The market can drive that, but we're not going to require it, because we support a shift as much as possible away from a car-centric economy and car-centric lifestyles. And then in many smaller ways, we've tried to involve our whole community in the sustainability effort, whether that's the Solar for All partnership that we did in partnership with the Connecticut Green Bank and Posigen, whether it's things like our rain barrel program that allows people to collect rainwater, whether it's things like what the Keeney Park Sustainability Project is doing to make gardening kits available to residents throughout the city. In countless ways, we've tried to make sure that our community as a whole is a full partner in our environmental sustainability work, and also gets the benefit of it, because especially when you talk about solar for all and smart responsible solar financing, it can make a huge impact on the environment, but also on the finances of a family. And so, we're really excited to be doing that work together with our community. There is an awful lot still to do. I mean, we have put together plans on complete streets, Vision Zero, about making our city more bike and pedestrian friendly. We've got a long way to go. We've got a lot more energy efficiency work to do. As I said, if we can lift that virtual net metering cap, I think there's an awful lot more we can do in the renewable energy space. But as we do that work, I hope that we'll all, as Connecticut communities, be strong advocates for those things that will really move us forward faster. And sometimes those are uncomfortable things. We have to be honest that we face as a world a true crisis, and addressing that crisis is going to require us to do some significant things. So, I'm a strong supporter, for example, of the Transportation Climate Initiative at the state level. Strong supporter of continuing to shift onto renewable energy and do the things like lifting VNM caps to make that possible. Thinking about the future of our waste stream, which is also a really important environmental sustainability issue. And, we would like to see the incinerator in Hartford closed, but we'd like to see 21st century technology that allows for the more environmentally friendly and fiscally sound disposal of waste in the future. So a lot of work we've done. I'm proud of our team and hugely grateful to Shubhita and Grace and all the city team that's worked with them. And again, really proud to be part of a state that has taken the lead in so many areas, with the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection that's committed to this mission, with a Green Bank that's a national model, with a governor that's focused on it, and now, finally, again, a federal partner that is putting some real federal muscle into this, generational, urgent, existential challenge that we have together. So thanks so much for the chance to be with you.
Thanks, Mayor Bronin, and we certainly appreciate that Hartford has always rolled up the sleeves to do, not just the shinier projects like installing solar and promoting solar for residents, but also doing, a really comprehensive look at sustainability, from looking at waste and complete streets plans. And we're also very excited to join you in Hartford and move our office over there and maybe even try some electric scooters soon. So next we'll turn to the town of Coventry and John Elsessor. I first met John on one of my first projects at the Connecticut Green Bank back in 2015, when I was doing a road show of sorts around to towns to talk about streamlining their permitting process for solar PV projects. And when I got to Coventry, I was happily late to the party, so to speak. Coventry's solar permitting process, like many of their municipal services, is efficient and straightforward. John's leadership sets the tone in the town that it's eager, open, and proactive in taking on new ideas and initiatives. John Elsessor has served as town manager since 1988 and has served in other Connecticut towns as an assistant since graduating from the University of Hartford in 1982 with a master's in public administration. He is a credentialed manager through ICMA, the International City Management Association. He also serves in a leadership capacity at the regional and state level, including positions as president of the Tulland County Chamber of Commerce and on the board of directors of CCM, COST, and chairman of the Connecticut Interlocal Risk Management Agency. John has certainly made his mark in Coventry, going the extra mile to make things happen. He'll be receiving 40 Years of Service Award from ICMA this fall. Congratulations, John, well deserved, and thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here today. It's always hard to follow Mayor Bronin. So I'll do my best, but I won't live up to him. But I'll start with saying I support releasing that cap on virtual net metering, and I'll get to that in a little bit too. But it's we need to move this state forward. So I'm honored to share the town of Coventry's efforts to make our town more energy efficient and sustainable. I wish I could say our goals were just because these changes were the right thing to do, but it's also we're also very interested in just saving money. So we became advocates after seeing our results. So we joke about stumbling into sustainability. We had a lot of help, and I need to credit our Citizens Energy Advisory Committee and town staff for pursuit of many grants. We also created a lot of public-private partnerships, including those with Green Bank. So let's spend a few minutes on Earth Day talking about what we did and what we're still working on. We focused on solar for both town and school buildings through Green Bank and commercial properties through CPACE and residential houses through the Solarize campaign. We also promoted energy aggregation in the early days of energy deregulation and included clean energy options for our residents. And it ended up having several other towns piggyback on our bid. We took the Connecticut Clean Energy Pledge and actually fulfilled it in 2017 by reducing our townwide energy or town buildings energy use by 20%. We're only one of 9 buildings that did that. 9 towns, I'm sorry, that successfully completed the pledge. So we have installed solar PV on our middle school, both elementary schools, town hall, 2 firehouses, police station, and several carports. Of these, 8 are using Green Bank Solar Power Purchase Agreement, totaling 456,000 kW. But we started off, as most people did, by conducting energy audits and implementing energy retrofits on all town and school buildings. We worked with Connecticut Natural Gas to actually bring natural gas into our town from the neighboring town of Mansfield, and that allowed us to replace or convert 12 furnaces in 7 municipal and school buildings. But it also allowed homeowners to convert, about 30 homes converted to natural gas too. So while natural gas is still a fossil fuel, it's cleaner and more efficient than the oil that we were using. We were earlier adopters of hybrid vehicles and EV charging stations. Using grants, we installed one at the town hall in 2014 and one at the high school at 2016, and are currently converting our fleet to more and more hybrids. Last year we started with converting our police cars to hybrids, and although they cost more money, there's a 1-year payback due to the reduction in fuel use. So we've participated in Eversource building energy programs and converted every major town and school building to LEDs and updated motors and control systems and pumps. So every building we've done. Under this program, it's a 0 interest loan with some grants and usually has a payback within 3 years. We were a pilot community for the Eversource street light LED conversion. So we had 50 lights put in to see how they were accepted, and subsequently converted all except the ornamental lights and floodlights in town, which are still awaiting PURA rate approval. So once those are done, we're on a list to get those remaining lights modified. We opted not to take ownership since we only have about 150 streetlights and we didn't want the maintenance responsibilities. To promote solar in our community, we ran 2 community solarized CT programs and had 43 households opt to install solar. This was in the early days of solars where people were nervous, and the program allowed kind of a pre-vetting of contractors and an additional inspection process. So right now we have over 200 solar systems on households in town, and we were ranked #1 in the state under the municipal scorecard in 2016. We've also achieved the rank of SolSmart Gold, a national service for the ease of our solar permitting process. So working with our energy committee, we promoted home energy audits, and actually 17% of our households participated. They also hosted energy fairs. At the energy fairs, we did a little bit of everything, including selling home composters that we got a DEP grant for, and our local trash authority also subsidized them. We did EV demos, energy demos, including new technologies like using Alexa to control lighting and fans. In 2016, we ranked 3rd in the state in per capita clean energy investment and 12th in per capita clean energy deployed. So as a small town, we still do big things. We ran several Bright Idea grants to promote LED conversions and the use of outdoor solar lighting. So we took it a step further and we became a direct importer of solar lighting from China. And we brought in park lighting in our parks that use solar. So it was quite an adventure. And people say, well, didn't it cost a lot to ship? Yeah, we paid $600 to ship lights from China, but the vendor that we liked was going to cost $1,900 to ship them from California. So it actually cost us less to ship them directly. And I got to meet some nice folks in China that they sent me a nice wedding picture. So it was quite the adventure. We've used some DEP DERA, D-E-R-A grants to replace 2 old diesel trucks to more fuel efficient, cleaner burning trucks in our public works fleet. And we now accept used motor oil to partially heat our public works garage with a waste oil furnace. We actually had an early demonstration of wind turbine at our high school, which generated over $5,000 worth of electricity, but had some mechanical problems in the long run, so we're no longer using it. But it did demonstrate that wind power does work in Connecticut, even inland. But the lesson that we also learned, which is important for a demonstration grant, was that you need to have scale. And the smaller wind turbine was not cost efficient enough due to annual maintenance costs. So it broke even. But if it were a larger scale, it would have worked. So we're silver level in the Connecticut Sustainability Program, which is currently the highest available. And if gold comes around, we'll probably go for it. And part of that, we adopted a municipal action plan, which is currently available on their website. So what's next for us? We spent the last couple of years working with private investors to implement a $4 million microgrid grant. The whole project will probably cost about $8 million, and they're looking for financing if Green Bank is doing this type of project. This will include our high school, middle school, and their related water systems, the town hall, our emergency operations center, community communications tower, school admin building, police station, fire station, and fueling station, and 80 units of senior housing that have electric heat. So the system will use the newly installed natural gas to run 4 combined heat and power units to generate electricity and heat. The excess heat will be used to supplement the heat in our high school and middle school. The system will also include large ground-mounted solar complex at the senior housing area and use battery storage to control energy peaks and eliminate demand charges. We are redesigning our high school and middle school air handling systems, get rid of unit ventilators, and hope to add air conditioning in the future using the waste heat from the microgrid. We are experiencing difficult regulatory hurdles with DEP and PURA, and we're about 1.5 years behind schedule, but we're working through all these issues one at a time. It's a very complex project. We also have 2 other 250 kW solar arrays waiting for virtual net metering, which will allow us to send the power to 10 other town and school buildings. If all these come together, we're going to be virtually off-grid for all town and school buildings. As part of our municipal action plan, we've set 5 goals, which we call our high 5. Over the next 5 years, we hope to continue to reduce our electricity use by 5%, reduce oil use by 5%, reduce gas and diesel use by 5%, reduce household waste by 5%, and increase recycling by 5%. And also increase our community energy education events by 5%. As a community, we've worked hard at reducing energy use and helping our citizens do the same. It's just part of doing our job, and only by looking back have we grasped how much we have really accomplished. But as technology changes, we'll continue to work to save both energy and tax dollars. So we appreciate very much the time to share our story on Earth Day. And our kickoff for Earth Day this year was actually, we've created a lake pledge that we already have people signing up online to keep our lakes clean. And if they do, we'll recognize them with a little static sticker. And hopefully by working as a community, we can look at all aspects of our environment. So I appreciate very much the opportunity to share our story.
Thanks, John. Your story about having to become an importer from China, you personally, to get these LED lights is one of my favorites, and just really exemplifies how you really do go above and beyond to do whatever you can to make these projects happen. So if anybody hasn't heard the full details of that story, it's worth hearing. And you bring up a great point about the importance of doing efficiency, especially as a first phase or a first campaign to promote. And I like the motto that you casually coined of being a small town that's doing big things. Whether it's being using some ingenuity, using old motor oil for heating. That's a great idea. Out of the box, wouldn't be on maybe a rating scorecard or something like that, but it certainly shows how resourceful you guys are to even taking on the larger projects like a microgrid. So I'm sure we'll have some questions about that in the Q&A.
Thank you.
So thanks, John. It's great to hear about Coventry. And last but not least, I want to turn to our coastal town of Branford, to our first selectman, Jamie Cosgrove, who graduated from Branford High School and went on to receive a bachelor's degree in finance from the University of New Haven in 1996. After graduating from college, he began work at his family's Branford business, Cosgrove Construction, where he served as project manager for over 20 years. Jamie was elected as first selectman in November of 2013 after serving on the board of selectmen for 2 years. In addition, he previously served on the Branford Representative Town Meeting, the town's legislative body, from 2009 to 2011. And while on the RTM, he served on several committees, including Administrative Services and Rules and Ordinances. Under Jamie's leadership, the town of Branford created the first Office of Sustainability and Compliance, as well as a Clean Energy Ad Hoc Committee, both of which have really just ignited the town's focus and achievements around sustainability. Jamie's common sense approach has brought Branford community from all sides of the aisle to come together to tackle these important issues. Thank you for your leadership, Jamie, and for joining us today. And we'll turn it over to you to talk about Branford. Oh, you're muted. Let's see if we can get you unmuted here. There we go.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Emily. I thank the Connecticut Green Bank for putting on this event today, and it's an honor to be part of this with Mayor Bronin and Town Manager Elsessor. Sorry, Jen. But it was great to hear what is happening in the other towns, and I think it's important to note, this is happening from the big city to mid-sized towns to the smaller towns, and that's what's needed in order for our state to really be successful in meeting our goals. And Branford's certainly proud the efforts, and we are happy to be here to share what we've done so far. I'll just touch upon a little. I'm going to give a little bit of a timeline, if you don't mind. After taking office in 2013, there were a few projects that the town has taken on, had completed. We did a 1.3 meg solar array on a former gravel pit that the town had acquired. And that was a project where it was a virtual net metering arrangement with Tesla. Another project that we did, in touching on the conservation efforts that are needed, as you said, I believe, Emily, in one of your previous comments, sustainability is very comprehensive. You have to take a comprehensive approach to truly become a sustainable community. It touches on a number of areas, not only clean energy or conservation, but transportation, finance, a whole host of areas. So we engaged ESG as our owner's rep, and we entered into a power purchase agreement or energy performance contract with Honeywell as our contractor, where we touched pretty much almost every town building. We had a few that were going to be under construction or planning on disposing of. So those buildings may have not been touched, but every other town building as well as school building was touched with this project. And we saw about a 30% energy savings on that project. We just completed our second year of the measure and verification project, and that project has proven to be successful. It's important to note, not only myself, there's others involved, but probably people you wouldn't normally think being actively involved in seeing these projects come forward and go through fruition. We had our town finance director, Jim Finch, actively involved in it, as well as other staff members. But we're looking around, and it's the first selectman, the finance director, maybe some other staff members coming in and touching on these projects. We have a facilities manager and town engineer. From that, it really began a discussion. Okay, and we have a pretty active community of volunteers here in town, as most communities do, that are focused on sustainability, conservation, energy conservation, things like that. And that's what led to the creation of the Clean Energy Ad Hoc Committee. This committee was formed in 2019. It serves as advisory to the Board of Selectmen here in Branford. And, its primary focus originally was to come together and really lay out a plan or a guiding document on how to achieve the state's goals, the 2040, 2050 goals of reducing our carbon footprint. But since then, while they're focused on that, they've been bringing other projects forward and really have been taking a lead on a number of efforts. Getting back to, as you know, sustainability, a sustainable community is very broad. Around that time or shortly after, we created a coastal vulnerability ad hoc working group. This is a group that looks and does the education and outreach and identifying areas that are going to be vulnerable to climate change, rising sea levels. So that group was formed. And last, but certainly not least, we actually had an opportunity to create a position, a sustainability and compliance manager, which you had mentioned. And now that is somebody who is here, a full-time position, who can work with these various volunteer groups, different outside organizations, and other town departments. And Gina McCarthy came on board in last July and has been leading that effort. So really what we really hope to do, and I think, you know, the whole idea of what we're here celebrating Earth Day, right, is really to kind of promote and talk about the initiatives and what we need to do as not only, you know, a community, but it has spread, you know, across the globe, this effort. But it really isn't, it can't be a one-day event, right? And we want to certainly make sure that these initiatives not only they become essentially commonplace, and that's really what we're working for. And we recognize here in the town of Branford, you know, the town overall, as a town of 28,000, 20 square miles, you know, we may have a relatively smaller footprint, but yet we need to lead by example. So that's why within our municipal structure, when I talk about the creation of these groups and positions and departments, you know, we want the decisions and initiatives and actions really to become commonplace in our decision making. You know, John mentioned about stumbling upon this effort because they were looking to save money. But quite honestly, that's how, you know, the approach we take is with every decision and action, we show that there's not only an environmental benefit, there's often an operational and financial benefit. And that's how you really, you know, get the support across from the community as a whole to move forward with these actions. You know, a couple other highlights I just want to touch upon. This Clean Energy Ad Hoc Committee had drafted a Branford Energy Plan. As I said, that's pretty much a guiding document to meet the state goals, how a community can meet the state goals. We received a Heat Smart grant through PACE, which we had a residential and commercial home energy solutions air heat pumps. Similar, some may be familiar with the Solarized CT program, which Branford pretty much followed that same model, where we went through and we did a lot of outreach to the community, and we went through an RFQ process where we selected a vendor to talk about and potentially install heat pumps where appropriate. And that had tremendous success and a lot of positive feedback from residents that participated in that program. That has now transitioned into a business energy efficiency campaign. Once again, we're trying to educate and make aware, do the outreach to the business community of what already exists out there in terms of incentives, programs where they can not only reduce their energy consumption, but ultimately reduce their costs. Working with the Green Bank, with the solar map program, we have 2 schools, and hopefully this summer we'll begin those rooftop arrays, which will be 2 elementary schools. And again, we hope to further expand that effort into other schools. As we mentioned, we had projects underway, but we've already identified that it will be, there's potential in some other schools, our middle school and our high school, for those initiatives as well. Moving forward, we're working with the Green Bank for the Solar for All to provide solar for low and moderate income families. I'm going to mention this, although we got Soul Smart Bronze. Now here, Coventry is gold, but we're hoping to get silver soon. But I said, oh boy, should I scratch that out? John's gold. But no, I think it's still worth mentioning. And just to show, as we all say, there's still work to be done. But we are working. We feel confident that we can at least get to silver in the short term. And now we got our eye on gold. We have a virtual net metering. We're pending approval. Hopefully the cap does get increased, and that will allow us to take it for 10 more buildings, townwide buildings, to participate in a virtual net metering agreement. That was something actually when we, just to go back to our first solar array, the one I mentioned at the beginning, at that point, project got delayed because we had to get the cap it expanded at that time as well. And here we are, 5 years later, and we're now once again asking the cap to get increased. So certainly there's a need there. Certainly communities are taking a benefit of it, and hopefully that does go through. On the transportation front, we are starting to transition some of our town fleet to EVs, and also looking to put in charging stations and build out the electric fleet infrastructure. Our volunteer group has been working with Live Green on an EV school bus program, and again, reaching out to our Board of Education. Now, we don't own the school buses, but once again, we think here's an opportunity to engage our providers and let them know what programs are out there and the benefits, and move towards that transition. On our infrastructure end, in terms of our buildings, we have a animal shelter that's be going through a renovation and expansion, and our goal is to achieve a net zero building when that's all said and done. So that's a pretty exciting project. Certainly on the LED front, we have, or one of the towns talk about the parks conversions. We're going through that now as well. We have over the years been transitioning to that. I will just also mention, as we said, sustainability is quite broad. And just today, I was at an event where we were planting a number of native and pollinator trees and shrubs to support our environment. And that project aside, the town has been committed to planting, and we plant probably anywhere between 50 to 60 trees annually along our town property or the right-of-ways. And we're committed to make sure those are native species. But we also, our Conservation and Environment Committee is also really working hard, and with other groups as well, to create a pollinator pathway throughout town. Lastly, if I just may, we created, the town of Branford a couple years ago, a coastal resiliency fund. I mentioned about our finance director working on a number of these initiatives. This is a fund where we get an investment fund to meet basically what we want to have, an investment policy, a fund where we could set up an investment policy that matches. We're looking at climate change, sea level rise as a long-term liability, as all communities are. But we know resources are difficult to come through. You have we rely on grants, bonding, or tax dollars. We feel that setting up this fund allows us to have a investment fund that matches and a policy that matches our long-term liability. A couple years ago, through the leadership of Senator Cohen, We got state legislation passed to allow municipalities to set up this fund. And now it's pleased to hear that the state is actually considering through the treasurer's office setting up a fund which would allow municipalities to invest in such a fund that the treasurer's office would essentially manage. It was a lot, but I'd like to save time for the Q&A. Thank you, and once again, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks, Jamie, and hats off to you and everyone working in Branford for just really this shotgun approach of participating in every program and looking at every opportunity and just filling your plate. You guys are really insatiable when it comes to taking on all of these different tasks to save the planet, and it's really really interesting to hear that you guys have started this investment fund looking at the long term. I know that's really difficult for our town CEOs to be able to do that, to think many years forward and get funding to support those ideas in the future, because I know there's a lot of different needs that are pulling on those resources. So really interesting concept, and would love to hear more. I know we've got just a couple minutes left. I should have known with everything that's going on in Hartford, Coventry, and Branford, we would fill an hour easily and fill it even more. So I've got a couple questions, a few questions in the Q&A. Maybe we'll just start with one. How supportive or resistant was the public with many energy projects that have been implemented, and how did you win over support given any dollar investments that had been needed? John or Jamie, either one of you.
I think Jamie already said it. The projects kind of sell themselves because there's a payback both socially but also economically. So we've had very little opposition to things because you make the business plan for it.
Yeah, that's been our approach all along too. As I said, you focus on not only the environmental, but the financial and operational benefits, and you then get broad support.
Great. And just one more question. John, you mentioned the microgrid project, which sounds really, really interesting and kind of next level when it comes to looking at not just putting solar panels on everything you can put solar panels on, and not just making everything as efficient as possible, but really thinking about the resiliency element. What would you suggest or what would you recommend for other municipalities to how they could start on the path of looking at this if they were interested?
I think the technology's come a long way. So I think you have to kind of read the literature. I mean, we started looking at whether we want to use a fuel cell, and frankly, we weren't big enough for a fuel cell. So combined heat power was an alternative. So they're still basically fossil fuel based, but I think for the near future, that's going to be part of it, and having a combination of various energy sources, I think, also helps sustainability. There's still some state money available. They haven't offered another round for microgrid, but I believe that they haven't spent it all. So they should urge DEP to open up another round if they want to look at the microgrid options. Ours is much more complex because we're doing so many buildings at once. I think there are some simpler models.
Yeah. Yep. Or give you a call and pick your brain over it, right?
Be glad to.
Well, I know we wanted to get to a lot more questions, but we're at time, and I'm sure we all have many other Earth Day celebrations to get to today to help bring in the holidays. So I want to thank you guys for joining us and sharing about what's going on in your communities. It was great to hear an update from Gina McCarthy, letting us know what to look forward to from our federal leadership. And I think all of us on the call heard a lot of things to get the ideas going about what we can do in our own communities. So there's a lot of lessons learned there. And also just, I'm feeling very proud of Connecticut for the great work that's being done on the ground level. So really applaud you guys for leading the way for the rest of, you know, our towns and cities and for the country. So thank you very much for joining us to help celebrate Earth Day and for bringing in our 5th webinar of the webinar series. And thanks to all of you who joined us. Up on the screen, you'll see we'll be putting together some future webinars, and you can learn about them at the website listed. So thanks everyone, and enjoy the rest of your Earth Day.
Thank you.
Thank you.